Yes, indeed. What's happening, world? B Marsh Boxing, and we back at it. Top five dead or alive. B Marsh Boxing. Check out my playlist right here on YouTube. Just go to B Marsh Boxing, my channel. Go to play my playlist, and you shall see top five dead or alive. This is where I cover from every single division, all the way from heavyweight to all the way down to strawweight or minimum weight. We cover the top five greatest fighters in every single division of all time. All right. This is what we doing over here, you know what I mean? Top five fighters of all time. Very hard to do. Sometimes gotta omit and take out some people who might some people might have on their top five that are alive. This is just basically also for discussion, man. If you have any input, any thoughts, any disagreements, any agreements, whatever you'd like to share, drop it in the comment section, you know what I mean? Let's start off with the lightweights, man. First and foremost, we got Carlos Ortiz from Puerto Rico. Great fighter, one of the best fighters ever to come out of the island of Puerto Rico. 61 wins, 7 losses. Only one of his losses was by knockout, and he's also knocked out 30 people. That's 30 KOs, all right? Now, Carlos Ortiz, like I said, one of the greatest fighters out of Puerto Rico. He was a guy who was actually a champion in two different weight classes. I believe his first world titles was in the what was it in the like welterweight at 140. You know what I mean? Um, and he had some battles with the Italian Dewey Louie Louie, and then after the Dewey Louie Louie, he won. He won, I believe, 2 out of 3 versus Dewey Louie Louie Italian. Um, Then the man Carlos Ortiz, he moved up to welterweight. I'm sorry, to lightweight, and he became a world champion when he beat Joe Brown in 1962, and he won the ring and the lineal titles, and also the inaugural WBA title. Okay, so why do I have him as my top five dead or alive? Carlos Ortiz is credited to having the most unified title defenses at lightweight. That accounts for something, you know what I mean? The guy was a pressure fighter, a come forward fighter, vicious with the body shots, relentless fighter, can close the distance, but prefers to bang on the inside, you know what I mean? Is a very good fighter, Carlos Ortiz. Ask any Puerto Rican, and they'll definitely have him as far as one of the greatest fighters to ever come out of Puerto Rico, you know what I mean? Um, he had his fights with the American Kenny Lane. I believe Kenny Lane had beat him before, but he avenged that loss. And that's when he became a unified champion, probably, was it? I believe so. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe he became a unified champion later on in his career, you know what I mean? But Carlos Ortiz is a great fighter, man. I remember his fights with Flash Olordi. One of the best fighters ever to come out of the Philippines. You know what I'm saying? And Flash Olordi was coming up in weight, and he challenged himself like a lot of fighters did back in the day. From Jose Napoli's going up to 160 to fight Carlos Monzon, or um, Ray Leonard going up to fight Hagler. Guys always did that. Sandy Sadler at featherweight, he also went up to 130 to fight the reigning kingpin at 130 and Flash Lordy. You know what I mean? So Carlos Ortiz, he stopped him in the 14th round. You know what I'm saying? He had his battles. He finally lost his world title to Ishmael Laguna, great fight out of Panama, one of the best fighters, top five dead or alive fighters out of Panama. But he avenged that loss, and he stopped Ishmael Laguna in the rematch. He stopped him in 4 rounds to avenge that controversial loss he had to Ishmael Laguna. He fought guys. He went up and fought guys like Nicolino Lochi while he was the lineal lightweight champion. You know what I mean? Sugar Ramos from Mexico is a great fighter from Mexico. So he finally lost his world title to Carlos Tio Cruz. Okay, and no shame in his game. You know what I mean? The man reigned for a long time, and I gotta rate the man as top five dead or alive. We gotta give it up to Carlos Ortiz. Some people may have him higher on their list, but I personally think top five dead or alive. I'd put him at number 5. Number four, I got none other than the Ghetto Wizard, Jewish guy out of Lower East Side, Manhattan, New York. Yes, none other than Benny Leonard, the Ghetto Wizard. Like I said, that's his nickname. You know what I mean? Jewish boxer. Just like Bonnie Ross, who I covered in the 140-pound division. This was a guy who was a hero to the Jewish community. You know what I mean? Especially in the Lower East Side of New York. This guy was a great fighter. You know what I mean? Was fighting in the 1900s. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like 1912, 1920s. Has wins over guys like Jack Britton, um, uh, Rocky Kansas, who became a future world champion by the time Benny Leonard had beat him. I think actually he had a loss, so was disqualified versus Jack Britton. You know what I mean? Um, he beat guys like Johnny Dundee. Had a draw with the great fighter from England, Kid Ted Lewis. You know what I mean? Those were days when it was a newspaper decision. You know what I mean? He won his world title as a lightweight in 1917 when he beat Freddie Welsh, great fighter out of England as well. You know what I mean? Um, you know, Barney Ross was a great fighter. You know what I mean? A guy who was, like I said, was an inspiration to the whole Jewish community. And he was a guy who retired. I think the Jack Britton fight was at welterweight. You know what I'm saying? But he lost that fight, but then he came back down. You know what I mean? He retired and as a lightweight champion. Then he came back in 1925. He also had fights with Jimmy McLaren. You know what I'm saying? You know, one of the best fighters of the 30, Jimmy McLaren. So the man Benny Leonard, you gotta rate him as one of the best lightweights of all time. You know what I mean? You know, in many publications, they've had him as rated as the number one lightweight of all time. This was before guys like Duran came along, etc. You know what I mean? Bert Sugar places him as number six of all time greatest fighters of all time. I think BoxRec rates him Benny Leonard as the second best lightweight of all time. And Ring Magazine also has him as number two greatest of all time. You know what I'm saying? Some organizations, some publications, like I said, they rate the man as the best lightweight of all time. But I think during his days, the man had his time, and he was a great fighter during his era. You know what I mean? But I personally think better lightweights have come along in the future, and even in the past before him. So I gotta rate the man Benny Leonard, top five dead or alive. You know what I mean? Whether you have him at number one, whether you have him as number five, as long as you have him on the list, then I rate wherever you have him. You know what I mean? No arguments from me. Let me know in the comment section what you think about the man Benny Leonard. You know what I'm saying? Great fighter out of the Lower East Side, New York City, Manhattan. And number three, top five dead or alive, I got none other than the man Joe Gans, the first African American champion in boxing ever, any weight class. Before Jack Johnson, before anybody, you know what I mean? He was the first African American champion. He's also credited with being the forefather of the modern style of boxing, using the jab. You know what I'm saying? Not that, put up your Duke style like you see John L. Sullivan pictures or, these guys from, the turn of the century style. Nah, this guy was actually a modern day. His style is a style that is could be that modern day fighters still use till today. You know what I mean? A great puncher during his um, in his reign as a boxer. You know what I mean? And believe he got the lightweight world title when he beat a man by the name of Frankie Earn in 1912 or 1902. Excuse me. You know what I mean? You check it, and he had a long reign as champion. You know what I'm saying? And he finally lost his world title 6 years later uh, when he fought the man. What's his name? Battling Nelson. You know what I mean? Joe Gans fought a lot of great fighters. He has a draw with Barbados Joe Walcott, you know what I mean? Um, beat guys like Jack Blackburn, you know what I mean? Who, Jack Blackburn ended up being Joe Louis' trainer, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, he's rated as one of the greatest punchers of all time, you know what I'm saying? Um, he has a lot of, this guy fought in the 1800s, you know what I mean? In the late 1800s and the early 1900s, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of he has a lot of fights that are unconfirmed bouts and exhibitions. But the reason I have him as number three all time, apart from being a guy who's pioneered the modern day boxing style, he's also an all time great, in history as far as being the first black American champion of all time. You know what I mean? You check it, Joe Gans from Baltimore, Maryland. He died young, died in his 30s, I believe, to leukemia, tuberculosis, or something, you know what I'm saying? But he was a great fighter, you know what I mean? I've seen some film of the man, as you even seeing right here on the films on the screen, you know what I mean? But you gotta rate the man, on Be March Boxing, when we do top five dead or alive, we cover from all eras, you know what I mean? Even from the turn of the century all the way to modern fighters, you know what I mean? If you're a great fighter in your weight class, we shall rank you on this channel, Be March Boxing, you know what I'm saying? Let's go to number two. Number two, I got none other than Sweet Pea, Pernell Whitaker, Norfolk, Virginia's own gold medalist, 1984 Olympics. Sweet Pea, 49 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, 18 KOs. You know what I'm saying? Great fighter, man. Pernell Whitaker was a defensive maestro, a champion in 4 different weight classes, 135, 140, 147, and 154. You know what I mean? Had a tremendous amateur record, over 200 wins. You know what I'm saying? He's in the Hall of Fame. He has wins at lightweight against guys like Azuma Nelson, who went on to become a great fighter. You know what I'm saying? You know, Pernell Whitaker, man, he became a lightweight champion in 1989 when he beat Greg Haugen. Okay, then he got himself a WBC title when he fought Julio's, what's his name? The guy he had lost to, he had got robbed against. Um, Julio Ramirez or Jose Ramirez, you know what I mean? You check it. The man is a great fighter, man. Pernell Whitaker, you know what I mean? That's how he got his WBC title, and he got a WBA title when he beat up Juan Nazario, knocked him out in 2 rounds, devastating knockout. You check it. Undisputed at 135 pounds, you know what I mean? Hadn't been an undisputed fight champion at lightweight since Roberto Duran, you know what I mean? And Pernell Whitaker, man, is one of my favorite fighters of all time. You know what I'm saying? I was tempted to put him at number one, but I gotta pay homage to even those who came before him, you know what I mean? He schooled the man Azuma Nelson, you know what I'm saying? And even beat guys like Jorge Paez, beat Roger Mayweather, you know what I'm saying? Way before he was a champion. You know what I mean? Like I said, he got robbed versus Jose Luis Ramirez, but he avenged that loss, you know what I'm saying? When he fought Jose Luis Ramirez in the rematch and gave him a thorough beating, you know what I mean? You check it. So, and that was when he got himself, like I said, the vacant WBC title. But the man is a great fighter, you know what I mean? Even beat guys like Alfredo Lane. Alfredo Lane was a guy who beat for the 130-pound title. What's his name? Damn, what's that guy's name? Wilfredo Gomez, you know what I mean? You check it, these are guys, you know what I mean? He was a Panamanian. But, these are the type of guys Pernell Whitaker was beating, you know what I mean? Guys who have these type of victories, you know what I mean? Um, You know what I'm saying? You know, the man stopped with Fredo Gomez, and then he lost his world title to who was it? To Brian Mitchell, the WBA and the lineal 130-pound champion. But we're talking about 130. And I mean, you know, I could go on and on about Pernell Whitaker's accolades, but we're just gonna focus on why he is a great fighter at 135. We haven't had another lightweight champion unify the titles since the man Pernell Whitaker. You know what I'm saying? Really and truly, you know what I mean? At lightweight, nobody has become undisputed, you know what I'm saying, since Pernell Whitaker, you know what I mean? So, gotta put that man up there as number one. Number two, greatest lightweight of all time. You know what I mean? Number one, you guessed it. If you don't know, now you know. Yes, indeed. Manos de Piedra, number one all time in my book. Greatest lightweight of all time to me. The greatest fighter in the 70s. Him and Muhammad Ali. He had a greater record than Muhammad Ali in the 70s. He had only one loss. You know what I'm saying? To Esteban de Jesus, which he did avenge. A great fighter in Esteban de Jesus. We even put him on the canvas before. You know what I mean? But Duran put him on the canvas more times than he got put on the canvas by Esteban de Jesus, you know. Duran became a world champion in 1972 when he beat Ken Buchanan in Madison Square Garden. Some say he hit him with a lot of low blows. Might be, you know. That last punch to put Buchanan down, I believe in round 13, looked pretty low to me, and the guy couldn't continue, you know what I mean? So Duran held that WBA title from 1972 till 1979. He unified in the meantime, in between time. In those days, you only needed 2 world titles to become unified, and he beat Esteban de Jesus in 1978. And I believe that was his last fight ever at lightweight when he became undisputed. You know what I mean? And, you know, like I said, man, this guy had only one loss in the whole decade of the 70s, you know. Going into the Durant to the Leonard fight, he was like, man, had like over almost 80 wins, you know what I mean? You check it, Duran was that dude at 135, you know what I'm saying? Tough fighter, slipping punches in the pocket, mean punches. He throws punches and bunches and with devastating power at the end of those shots, you know what I mean? You know, um, he beat everybody in his era. Everybody who was around in the 70s as lightweight, they got that work from the man Roberto Duran, you know what I'm saying? Great fighter. He even fought guys like Sal Mambi, who went on to become a 140-pound champion with the WBC. And is actually credited as the oldest man to ever step into a professional boxing ring. He was 60 years old when he had his last fight, Sal Mambi. Look him up. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man. So Esteban de Jesus, that was his last fight at 135 when he unified the titles. You know what I'm saying? You know, Duran is Duran. Like I said, you know, 103 wins, 16 losses, 70 knockouts. You know what I'm saying? Great fighter. And that's my top 5 that are alive. You know what I mean? You know, let's run it down. Number 5, Carlos Ortiz from Puerto Rico. Number 4, we got Benny Leonard from the Lower East Side, Manhattan, New York. Number 3, we got Joe Gans from Baltimore. Number 2, we got Sweepy Pernell Whitaker from Norfolk, Virginia. And number 1, we got Roberto Duran from Panama, the greatest Hispanic fighter of all time. Absolutely. No question about it. You know what I mean? One of the greatest fighters, top 10, no question. Some might even have him top 5 greatest fighters, period, in boxing. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I thought this particular one to me was pretty easy to do. As long as you have Carlos Ortiz, Joe Gans, Pernell Whitaker, Duran, and Benny Leonard in your top 5, then there's no wrong answer here. You know what I'm saying? You know, there's other great lightweights of all time. You know, we got guys like Lou Ambers. You know, guys who fought guys like what's his name? Homicide Hank, you know what I mean, Henry Armstrong. You know, you got Tony Canzoneri, a guy who fought in the 20s and the 30s. You know what I'm saying? You know, Tony Canzoneri was a guy who was a great fighter in his day, very popular as well. You know what I'm saying? You know, in modern times, one of the best lightweights I've seen in probably the last 20 years, I gotta give it up to guys like Juan Manuel Marquez. He was a devastating fighter at 130, very accomplished, the highest ranking pound for pound he ever reached, and number two was when he was defending his WBA lightweight titles. You want to see a good fight? Just go watch that fight with him and Juan Baby Bull Diaz. You know what I mean? What a fight, you know what I'm saying? So that's my top five dead or alive, you know what I mean? That's how we doing it over here, B Marsh Boxing. Leave your thoughts and comments. Let me know about who you think is the greatest lightweights. Let me know if you think there's anybody that I didn't that I left out or didn't put as a top five greatest lightweights. I highly doubt it. I covered them all, you know what I'm saying? And I think everybody that is supposed to be a top five greatest lightweight of all time, you've seen them right here on B Marsh Boxing channel, you know what I mean? So leave your thoughts and comments. B Marsh Boxing, thanks for listening. If you're new to the channel, please share and subscribe. And please don't forget, check out my playlist to see all the other videos that I've done on top five dead or alive. Today we covered the lightweights. Of course, next we're gonna go to super featherweight and all the way down, all the way to strawweight. I've covered everything from heavyweight up until lightweights. B Marsh Boxing, I'm out of here. Peace.